There we go. Matt here today, just Matt. It's 105 degrees. I'm going to enjoy a Corona without a mask. And I'm going to look into some pictures that I've been promising to show. I finally got them all ready. And we talked about it on the last episode, one of my projects between medical drama and Chinese bat AIDS and whatever else is going on, has been restoring old photographs. And I started with a bunch taken by my grandmother. And I'll have some for my uncles today. My grandmother was octocombist. She passed away in 2002. And through her, we inherited a love of cars and airplanes and such. And in a bunch of slides, I found these pictures that are some really interesting local history. We're going to get to the airplanes first. And I'm going to put them all up on the screen and talk about them one by one. The first thing we're going to talk about is the sport of soaring in West Texas. And we've talked about it a lot. I was heavy into it 80s and in the 90s when Eagles Nest Air Park was open. And it has existed. It's been in Midland. It's been in Odessa. I think there's still a club at Schleiermeyer Field. Maybe some at Hobbs. I think there's still one in Hobbs, Brownfield, and Alpine. There's nothing going on in Midland anymore that I'm aware of. And the difference between, we're going to talk about gliders, and there's kind of a difference between a glider and a sailplane. All sailplanes are gliders, but not all gliders are sailplanes. Gliders typically refer to like what you saw in World War II in the transport gliders, the Wacos, and things of that nature that were only designed to go down. They're just airplanes that descend. That's all they do. Sailplanes, on the other hand, are lighter, more high performance, and they can actually ride upward drafting currents like thermals and the wind that blows over mountains and stay aloft for a long time. So the competitions involve distance and altitude, duration, things of that nature. So in January of 1960, my grandmother went to then the Ector County Airport. It's now Schleiermeyer Field. And got some pictures of some airplanes that were there, some sailplanes. And what I've learned about these, I really had to do some studying. I've got pictures of 3 or 4 of them here. They were extremely high performance for their time. All these are somehow a record holder, one or another. And I don't know what they were doing in January because the soaring isn't all that great. There's not a whole lot of lift to be found in the cold, but they were there, and maybe it was just an expo. Who knows? But I'm going to show the first one. I've retouched these as best I could. These were taken. My grandmother used a Kodak. I think it's called a 120 film. It's the 35 millimeter in a cartridge. Not the greatest camera in the world. It's not the abomination unto the Lord that the 120 is. I've processed a bunch of those and they were horrible. But some of these pictures aren't great. Some of them aren't, but I did my best. The first one I will show is a Hall Cherokee 2. I'm going to put him up on the screen. And one thing I didn't know about this one, I'd heard about him before, but the Hall Cherokee 2 is a home built. The design came out in, I had to write it down, 1956. So this plane was pretty young at the time it was, this photo was taken. And so somebody built this thing and they are flying it. And light, single place, obviously. The next one I want to show is this was my grandmother's favorite airplane in the world. The slide was separate from all the others, and it was really beat up, and I remember showing me this as a kid. This is a Bolus Albatross. It was a factory airplane from the 30s, and a lot of records on this one. The pod and boom design where the pilot sits essentially in a pod, and you can look at this one and tell the pilot is damn near laying down in it, and just his head's poking up out of that canopy with the boom tail. And you can see the old water tower for Odessa in the background. You can see in the back there, station wagon, some folks standing around a glider trailer. That's an open trailer. And let's see. The next one is this is a really cool one. There's a story to this one. This is a Zanonia. Zanonia, if you want to look it up. This was specifically built for an actor. I didn't know who it was. I failed to write down the name, sorry. It was a single design. You can see it's a gull wing. This is the best picture she had of it. And it's the only one of them ever built, constructed in 1937. And most of these are wood as far as I know. This has the gull wing design. And I took that tail number. I was able to clean it up from another photograph. And this very airplane now sits in the International Soaring Museum in Elmira, New York. Thought that was pretty cool. And there she is, a Zanonia, and the only one of her kind, and made a trip to Odessa in 1960. And you can see the gull wing droop in there. I always wondered what it was like to fly one of those. Kind of a story to the next one. The first airplane I was ever in was a Schweizer 233A sailplane. It's a high wing. It's the 350 Chevy, the Ford F-150 sailplanes. They're still used, I think, at the Air Force Academy as a trainer. And you see them everywhere. It was built in Elmira, New York, which has a lot to do with why the Soaring Museum's there. But the first one I flew in was called Granddaddy's Toy, and it belonged to Roy Schlemeyer. And I was strapped in the front seat in my mom's lap at about 5 years old. Roy was piloting from the back. My stepdad flew the tow plane. And that's when Ector County Soaring Club was big. And coincidentally, that's the same type of aircraft I later soloed and private and built hours in. So I want to show this picture. My grandmother caught just part of it, just the nose wing and the strut of the 233. I think that's Granddaddy's Toy. I'm not 100% sure if anybody knows, but I remember the coloring, and I can't tell if there's any writing on it, so that's zoomed in pretty tight. Just another interesting little piece of aviation history. This guy cruising by in this little airplane, you can see he's got his big cowboy hat on, barely fits in the cockpit. That's an air coupe. That was built, I think, I've got a better picture. This isn't, obviously this is a stock photo, but they were built from the 40s, I think, until late 60s, early 70s. Pilots that don't know this will find it interesting. It did not have rudder pedals. The rudder was controlled. It was mixed in with the aileron, so you didn't have to press the rudder pedal, which is kind of a strange deal. But a friend of mine owns one, a guy that I've met doing chemotherapy, and he absolutely loves it, and a lot of people still fly them. And keep in mind, some of these planes were 30 years old when these pictures were taken, and airplanes are kind of like houses. You take care of them, you can fly them a very, very long time. So, cool piece of soaring history. We're going to do more on soaring. I want to do a full episode on Eagle's Nest and talk more about it. I wish it was still around in Midland. I would love to do it again. The next thing I want to show, Midlanders will probably know about Rattlesnake Raceway. I'm going to put up a Google Earth image. This is about 15 miles south of the interstate off of 349. This was a test track built by Jim Hall in, I forgot, sometime in the 50s, late 50s. Jim Hall's a Texas oil man, lived in Midland, and he was a pioneer in race car design. He was a race car driver, owned several cars, and they were kind of a breakthrough in aerodynamics from what I understand. I'm not an enormous auto racing historian, so feel free to look this stuff up yourself, but it was primarily a test track, and depending on what you read and who you speak with, there were between 1 and 3 races held there, actual races of a particular circuit. As far as I can tell, only one race was ever held with spectators. And during that race, there was a fatal crash, and there are lots of newspaper articles on that. And you always hear that story from many of the old timers that know the place. And one day my Uncle Bill told me that he and his brother, my Uncle Frank, I'm blessed with cool uncles, they had gone to that race, and he told me about it. He was there when it happened, and then lo and behold, I found a roll of film. And these are not retouched in any way. These are straight off the camera. I didn't do zooms or anything else. If anybody wants a shot of a particular car, let me know, and I'll do my best. There are no stands or bleachers or anything like that. People are just in a designated area watching from their cars. and my apologies for not knowing what these cars are, but I'll pull up the first frame, and you can see we've got an open wheel and then I don't know what you call that, a coupe or something like that. A little bit of speed blur in it and flat West Texas terrain. And I've just taken the best of the pictures that we had. There, like I said, there's a full roll. There are no pictures of the crash. I don't have that. Our next one is another open wheel and another monobody looking thing, whatever you would call it, fully enclosed. This is a really cool shot. This is the car they were in. I don't know who it was. I'll show you a picture at the end, who they were with. It's one of their friends. Looks like a Stingray, maybe a Cobra or something behind it. And you can see, I'm assuming that's just another spectator area, or maybe it's pits. I can't really tell because it would be in the center of the track either way, but good shot of that car, really pretty black. Like I said, it looks like a vet going by. That one, open car, open wheel, open body, open wheel, really cool. More spectators in the background. This one shows, I guess this would have been near the pad at the time. The windmill, I think, is gone. There are a bunch of pump jacks out there now, but you can see there are a lot of spectators, assuming it's taken from where my uncles were sitting. You can see a lot of folks are out there. And nice, cool red number 57 there again. Sorry, I don't know more about cars. Coming around that curve. I think we're looking south. In fact, I know we are because that power line. And then, so 349, Rankin High would be off to the right. And big group of cars in this one. I don't know which one. I think the white one is a Jim Hall car. I'm not 100% sure. And another good shot with speed. I had a toy car look just like that thing, open wheel. Beautiful car. And this one, I can't tell his number, but has the semi-enclosed wheels. Really neat looking piece of machinery. And again, there's a lot of really neat history with Jim Hall. He's still alive. He lives in DFW. He'd be an episode unto himself. Found out one of my friends did some design for him, a guy that I met at work. And many of the cars are on display at the Petroleum Museum. You can see them. It's pretty cheap. Just go in there and check them out. It's a neat display. A lot of cool history. There was Chaparral cars. Also, we had Franz Weiss, VDS Engines had a shop out by the airport. I'm old enough to have heard them running up Indy 500 engines that they built out there. I think he built Mario Andretti's engines for a while. So, folks, if you know more about the racing history or whatever, please chime in comments or shoot me a message. I'll show the last picture on the roll. I guess I made it home with one. And being a film photographer for so long, those last few rolls are sometimes the most interesting. I love this picture. I'll put it up here. It's apparently my uncle's friend, and I'm assuming a lady friend in their car. And I've showed this picture to a few relatives, and we have no idea who that is. And everyone that could tell us has unfortunately passed on, both of my uncles. So I hope everybody enjoyed this little chunk of history. If you would like full size of any of these photos, I'll be glad to give them to you. I have, these are scans right off of a roll of negatives, and I appreciate any history. And thank you very, very much for checking out this episode. Give us a like and a subscribe. We'll be back with more. Thank you, and enjoy. I hope you're not enjoying 105-degree heat like us. Cheers, and thank you.